Good
Good
morning.
morning.
How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Doing good. I am here with two distinguished teachers. They're on each side of me. The executive board members, Ramonia Toombs, Frankie Long, and they're part of American Federation of Teachers. And we'll be joined by Ron Fowler, executive director of Georgia Fed, in a few minutes. All right, so I'm just going to get right into it because we have 30 minutes. Um, where are you? Give us your name.
Well, my name is DeJaris DJ James,
Okay. And what city are you from originally?
Charleston, South Carolina.
Oh, that's a beautiful city.
I grew up
And
right downtown.
okay. And I have a favorite shoe shop down there, but I won't name it. Okay, tell us
Bob
about.
Ellis,
I have a favorite shoe shop down there. How long have you been living in the city of Atlanta?
6.5 years.
Why are you running for Atlanta Board of Education? Why do you want to be in that position?
What makes me want to be in that position is because I feel like we're at a point now where we don't have the leadership to ensure that we have equity in our education system. Being a parent, I noticed there are several areas that if I was not an active parent able to get out there and find the information for my children and be aware of different policies that are already in place that are not actually being enacted and publicized, I would have significant struggles. And I feel like as a parent, it shouldn't be that hard for you to make sure that your child is educated.
So I did have a question that we've not asked others. We will be asking incumbents if they have relatives or children inside of Atlanta public school system being serviced. But I'm assuming that you do from what you just said. Am I correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. What do you do for a living?
I'm a senior human resource partner. So I work in the space of talent acquisition, ranging from Fortune 500 companies to consulting work.
Okay. I love our term today, talent acquisition. Human capital. I love it. All right. So um, I want you to give me two positives about this Board of Education and two negatives.
Okay, two positives about this board of education is that I feel like one, they have done a phenomenal job at finding money for different activities, partnerships for the schools. But in lieu of that positive, there's also a negative where I feel like our partnership department is not equitable because a lot of these services that they are creating and these programs that they are creating are not being put in the schools that actually need it. And I feel like a lot of those dollars are funneled into our underserving community schools, more into beautification projects opposed to academic enhancement. Another positive that I feel that comes from this board is they are very trying to think of the best word to put this. When it's convenient, they feel they are very transparent, and some of the board members, I can't speak for all of them, some of the board members can be transparent as to what is going on and what needs to happen. But collectively, I don't feel like that's across the board. And I feel like that is a strong negative when you don't have a representation that is equal amongst the board and it feels divisive when you're just simply looking at a board retreat or a board meeting.
We are recording this. We are going to post everything from every interview so that, especially our members can see it and anybody else hopefully can be driven to uh, the site. What's the budget of the Atlanta public school system? How much money right now are you aware how much they take in every year right now?
I'm not sure of the exact number. I do believe it is somewhere around $1 billion for the budget that they receive. But I'm not exactly sure. I tried to do some research even before running, just in general, how it is kind of allocated. And a lot of the information is very difficult to find if you're not a APS website guru or savvy technical champion to that. It is very hard to find. It's very hard to
Hard to
find.
find information, yeah. Because we've asked some incumbents where information might be, and they'll tell us, and we look and it's all nice and tucked away from the weather. Okay.
And
Thank
I
you.
think one
Yeah.
of the things that helps me is because I am in a space of talent acquisition, we have to use a lot of Boolean searches. So I Boolean search a lot of information that I'm looking for via Google, and I'm able to find it on a link. Like a link just pops up, but when you go to the website and you think of the steps that could potentially get you to that link that Google was able to find, you can't find it. So that is a big challenge.
Okay. And just for you to know, there are three governments, of course, you just being from South Carolina, you may already know that Fulton, Atlanta City, and the school board, they're all government. Sometimes they work in tandem, sometimes
Mhm.
they don't. And the city of Atlanta's budget is a little less than what the school district budget. So that means that's a monumental task you're taking on there. Okay. Tell us any ideas or thoughts or opinions you have about Teach for America.
When it comes to Teach for America, I personally feel like putting them in schools that are underserving is a disservice because a lot of times these teachers aren't equipped with the guidance and support that they need to be successful with working with these particular students. I'm quite sure everyone has a success story that they could lay out of why Teach for America worked phenomenal for their children, so on and so forth. I have the same thing. My child was 4 years old and had two Teach for America teachers, but right next door in the class next to hers, there were two other Teach for America teachers, and the comparison was not there. And I think part of the reason is because two of those teachers, they started on the education track in their undergraduate and they transitioned to something else. And when you have that academia experience that comes in the beginning and you're translating into like a theoretical experience that you get through training, professional development, you can kind of connect those dots a little bit better. But without that academia balance and that, as you can say, in the bottom, that base of it, it's hard to be successful. And I think that's one of their biggest issues is making sure that their teachers are developed for this community and the population that they are going to be serving.
Are you aware that there are some members on the Atlanta Board of Education who are Teach for America?
I am aware of that.
Good. All right, thank you so much. All right. Um, Atlanta Public Schools has more charter schools than any other of the 180 school districts in Georgia. And but why do you think? First is why do you think that exists? I'm not asked that question to everybody like that because we're doing it a little different with some people, but why do you think?
This may take a long answer, so I'm gonna try and say it fast, but it's a couple of reasons. First being is that parents need services for their children that they feel it cannot be provided to them in a traditional public school setting, right? And catch my words when I say they feel it cannot be provided to them. If you are not aware
Right.
what, and I can't stress this enough, if you're not aware of it, if you don't know about it, you can't do anything about it, right? Because you feel that there's nothing that can be done. The second thing that I feel like is an issue is that charter schools, there is no problem with charter schools if charter schools are theme based. If you say to yourself, hey, we're a charter school that is focused on STEAM and emphasis on art. My child is maybe like 7, if she's interested in going into the arts, performing, that is a pathway for her. That is something that is very specific. Another thing that I feel that needs to be when it comes down to charter schools, why there could be a lot of charter schools, is the placement of these charter schools. We have to be honest. Underserving communities, when you look at where these schools are placed, it's highly in these underserving communities and soon to be in what are highly gentrified areas. And I bring that to the attention because, being like I said, I'm a native of Charleston, South Carolina. So I went through the ramifications of going through significant gentrification where I grew up with only 4 elementary schools and they started closing down these elementary schools and only had 2 public elementary schools like in the core downtown area to now converting those to charter schools. And now every single school that used to be a traditional public school is now a charter schools. Buildings that were abandoned that were supposed to be, used as GED development programs, emphasis and things like that, they're now charter schools. But we're putting them in the area so that when we gentrify our communities, parents that are a part of that process feel comfortable with their children now going to that school, not a traditional public school. And that allows them to say, hey, I don't have to spend money on a private school anymore. They go to a charter. And I feel like that is a community disbalance of creating that economy of separation between children, because children often say like, oh, you go to that charter school. You think you better. I mean, these are conversations, if you go to your local rec centers, that the students are having. These, and I can tell these are not thoughts that are created by parents. These are individualized thoughts that are created by children by interacting with them when they say, hey, I have an orchestra at my school. And the student saying, what is an orchestra? Oh, y'all think y'all better because you have, these are, and people think about it as small things, but these are really, really big things that we have to have conversations about to ensure that if these charters are there, why are these charters supposedly doing the same thing that our traditional public schools are supposed to be doing?
And another question is, why haven't these people with the bright ideas made sure that the money is there and the personnel and talent to support traditional public schools? Many of the folks who got behind, we call it the charter school scam, okay? Because in Atlanta, we are heavy laden with companies who are running charter schools, and one where we have a former mayor in that money making business. I'll be glad to go head to head with that person so they don't have to hide behind your nasty text messages to me. But I'm glad that you noticed too that they're mostly in African American areas. And sometimes they have to do with poverty, but sometimes they have to do with the fact that we can take advantage of people who are working for a living, who are ill, who are indigent, who are elderly, and et cetera, who are not paying attention. And because they're trying to pay attention to where they're going to get their insulin or where they're going to get their next paycheck, that kind of thing. I just want to throw that out. Thank you so very much. And also, with that said, I'm going to name some categories that Atlanta, some people, we'll say some players that the school system interacts with, and we are going to be general. I want you to choose only one, in your opinion, that this board has a tendency to lean more toward. One would be parents and students. The other would be nonprofit. The other would be churches and pastors. The next would be employees and teachers and everybody. And the next one will be private businesses or private sector. So which one of those do you think that APS board has a tendency to serve more than others? If you have to choose one.
Just choose one. Choose more. Choose
Not what it should do, but what your perception is as to what it actually does.
My perception of where they lean more is in a private sector space, in my personal opinion, is because it is often portrayed as the partnership. Private businesses and private sectors can provide them with additional partnership that will be essential for our scholars to be successful. But we have even seen in the past where we've had to actually sue a lot of times to get financial support that we need from these organizations. So I would say that they lean more in the private sector side, from my perception of not being on the board.
All right. You're taxpayer, so that's good. Perceptions matter too.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to ask you is compared to the city of Atlanta in regards to the budget and money, do you think APS's budget is more or less?
It's absolutely less. And it's absolutely less and unreasonable to be less, considering the amount of money that is being funneled into city of Atlanta. The last time when I looked at the research, I believe it was a year and a half ago before COVID happened, and they were excluding some of the additional monies that had came in. We were receiving, in comparison, maybe 1/4 compared to what the city is. I think the exact percentage was 28% of a comparison budget to city of Atlanta. And if you really do that in raw numbers, and I compared it to Baltimore city schools, not saying that Baltimore is doing anything phenomenal, but if you compare their budget to the city's budget of revenue they're bringing in as a metropolitan area, their number is at 38%. If you include Dallas in that number, you compare Dallas to their metropolitan budget, because they also are kind of set up on the same city statute, not the county as well. Their number is sitting at 42%. And Dallas is also another city that was a contender of a lot of charters and have reduced that because they do not see the value in the charter schools, and they saw it was defunding the education system that they had. So just comparing it against,
Are you
Go ahead.
aware of the contracts that these charter companies have and about how long those contracts might be and how the taxpayers and the school district could get rid of underperforming or lackluster charter schools? Are you aware of that procedure?
I'm aware of the procedure just from them speaking about it. I have not seen any like physical documentation of how the process has to go through to investigate, to kind of analyze, not even investigate, analyze if this is the process that's happening now. But in conversation of them speaking about it on the board, what that process would look like, I have heard it.
Do you think it'd be valuable if we could compare apples to apples, charter schools to traditional schools, how charter schools are choosing their students and how they retain their students, how much extra money they're dealing with, and where they're putting that money? Um, is there a place to find that readily on Atlanta Public Schools website?
Not that I could find. Me personally, I was not able to find that information. And the reason why I was looking for it is because when you go to where I'm originally from, Charleston County Public Schools, that is one of the major issues that they brought up. And I was like, well, let me see if Atlanta has something, in place that's similar.
You can't readily find
They
it.
have in place to that.
So you're running against the incumbent Jason Esteban. Have you looked at where Jason Esteban's financial contributions are coming from? Have you looked at that?
I did look at his disclosure report, but I have to be honest, I don't know all of those organizations to 100% say definitively who they are and what they represent.
Okay, because there could be a runoff in your race because I think there are three people in your race. Am I correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and so if you, for instance, well, no, I'm asking the incumbent that question. That wouldn't be fair for you all. We got some different ones for them. All right, besides the model of charter schools, because the American Federation of Teachers supported charter schools, but not the way Atlanta has, taken on charter schools. And, all of us were just baffled when we saw young people who did 2 or 3 years of service in the classrooms that loved kids so much that they got right on out and ran for public office and moved on up higher and that kind of thing. To come up with a charter school model when there are so many other models that we could work on, adopt for our children. What are some of the other types of educational resources and or models or curriculum that you would like to see in Atlanta Public Schools that we don't have right now?
First things first, I think that it would be imperative if we could view some of the magnet school models that are that have been created and being implemented and used. And it's interesting to say is because some of the magnet school models that Atlanta had years ago was kind of the stoic model that a lot of people began to follow. So to see that that's not still in place. So I would like to see magnet school models be a conversation that we have. When it comes down to curriculum, I believe that we should have a curriculum that is focused on preparation for I want to say college, but also outside of growth of college, transitioning into the workspace. I do a lot of work with my nonprofit. Well, it's not a nonprofit, but my organization called Marie Projects and Southern Bells and Gents to prepare students to get ready for college or transition into the workforce. And I meet so many students who are ill prepared, even with writing statements, their personal statements. They haven't drafted 3-page to 5-page papers. And some students that are in AP classes haven't even developed a 20-page paper. And I know a lot of times people think about these things as being extremely small, but when you sit behind the desk and you're a recruiter, traditionally called recruiter, and you see these resumes that are coming through and you hear these students and you ask them a simple question about, tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me about a time that you had to experience. And these students can't even articulate a time that or an experience that they had in school that is relevant to the conversation. We have to create pathways for them to be, be successful.
So because of time, we want to go to some other questions with you. What is the role of the home and parent in getting kids ready for school? What role? How significant is that to work with parents in the home and making sure students are ready for school?
I believe that is 90% of the role because a child. Listen, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was raised by my grandparents. Okay, I was raised by my grandparents in a household where that is your foundation. If your house is not on a solid foundation, there's no way you can walk into any establishment and be successful. And that doesn't mean that you have to be the most educated person, because my grandfather had a third grade education while my grandmother was a registered nurse, right? But they gave me morals and values that I was able to emulate when I walked into that school building. I was able to have morals to say this is wrong, this is right. I was able to raise my hand and advocate and say, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't have glasses. I don't have my glasses today. Can I move up to the front of the class? I didn't have those type of issues. While I was not raised by my mother, it was other things that support that my grandparents gave me to be able to say, this is your situation. It's another student going through the same thing. You can still be successful. But I had also, on top of that, I had teachers. I had teachers that came to school dressed, and it's so small, but dressed, ready to go with a smile on their face. I know when they woke up and they had on them silk stockings with those silk skirts, and they had the shirt on, they had their hair. You know, everybody had the French roll, had the French roll at the time with their cotton candy fingernails ready. They were ready to teach me, and I was ready to get dressed in the morning to go in that school to show them. Let me show you my outfit. Let me show you I can speak in front of the class.
I want you to think about if you win or lose, because we want to stay in touch with everyone during some type of partnership with the city of Atlanta, where that we have zero tolerance for nonsense in the schools. People talking back, cursing, and clowning, coming in late, that kind of thing. That's going to take some policing too. And it's going to be very unpopular. But we have to have discipline in the military. We have discipline in prison. We have discipline everywhere. But we are allowing students that they've been out of hand, and I'm going to just black there, they've been out of hand, and they are out of hand, and not all of them, but too many of them. Because you just take one out.
Not all of them, but I believe there's a level of comfortableness that has been allowed in children with the ideology of we want them to be able to, be comfortable in their skin, which is fine. But there's always comfortable in their skin, but respect should be in front that first layer. And I feel like comfortable in your skin does not mean comfortable to cuss somebody out, but able to articulate when you're upset or frustrated about something.
That goes to your role as a school board member, because what school board members do usually, they pay attention to whatever is set on the agenda by the chairperson, and the chairperson superintendent has a tendency to work in tandem on that agenda. Some people may not get on that agenda. And are you aware of the Georgia School Board Association? You will become aware of that, and the Superintendent's Association, and they're training school board members. But we've seen a lot of control over school board members, whereas they can have a knockdown, drag out private quarters and sessions, and then you represent a district, but you can't come out and say who did what and why they did it and why you weren't with it. So we got some problems with that. In other words, and all these rules were made up when school boards were being totally controlled. This is a control mechanism as we see it. And we can just go from the state all the way down to local boards. So we would like for you to be able, if you can't do it, and the world is going to see this, have you some parents who can do it with the idea to put the information out there, because people don't have time to watch everything that the school board is doing every day. But there are some things that you cannot do. So you would be so-called supervising one employee, as Emmett Johnson told me, and that's the superintendent. Emmett just said, we got one employee. I said, no, you got more than one employee, whether you want to take that on or not. And Emmett is my friend. So the superintendent, they passed the buck. We saw this last board pass the buck to Stark passed the buck back, but then we saw who was at the helm supporting Dr. Stark, which, by the way, is still a citizen and still pretty active politically. So we want you to bear that in mind, because a lot of times you will have great ideas and they're wonderful. But when you get there on their board, you get mired down in some agenda that's already been set. And I think you know what that agenda might be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm just saying that. So Atlanta Public Schools reaches out to parents, and we have about 51,000 students. And we need to know if you were not using the internet, if you weren't tweeting and twittering and all of that, what did Atlanta Public Schools do, and how could they be accountable to make sure that every parent is accounted for, even if it's a foster home or wherever that child is coming from? So what could Atlanta Public Schools, what should it do on a consistent basis to make sure that parents are identified and talked with They identified and then they're taught with about what their needs are to help their children succeed.
I think one of the biggest things is that that's when you kind of engage your community stakeholders. So if you are sending out your tweets, and you, because I'm saying, like I said, my grandparents raised me. They weren't on Twitter. They didn't have the computer was the devil's work. You had a typewriter, and one of the things that I know that she got most of her information from when she went over to the health department for us to get, different shots. The health department had information about the school. The doctor's office had information about the school, because one thing about a child needs to get their hearing, their vision. And on the flip side of things, you have to meet parents where they are. Every parent is not going to be interested and engaged about it, but the same way you knock on doors for them to vote for you during a campaign season, the same way you're at Greenbrier Mall in that time and you same as unsafe and you don't feel comfortable there any other time, when those Jordans come out, every single parent going to wake up. You need to be out there saying, hey, we got this going on. When these, when we got these big festivals going on, the gathering spot, we can't partner with these people to have our notoriety and our leadersness as board members be comfortable for them. We have to partner for them when we know that it's going to be an opportunity to engage our scholars, not to enlighten us and engage us at a higher level. We have these opportunities. This is Atlanta, Georgia. Come on. Atlanta, Georgia, we're having conversation about inequities in our education system. We're having conversations about gentrification commonly when we're plighted to where we need to talk about urban revitalization so our education system can be productive and successful and we're not displacing our students.
We have 2 minutes, and thank you for that. I'm a native of Atlanta, and everybody rides Maynard Jackson's coattail. Everybody want to ride Dr. King's coattail. But believe me, they aren't Dr. King. I don't care where I don't care how close they were to him. I wish I could do some things through osmosis, but anyway. All right, so last question. How do you feel about the movement of Buckhead secession, that movement? How would that affect us? Where do you stand? Because there's talk about Buckhead leaving the school district, the city.
Being their own city.
Leaving the city.
Yeah. May not happen right now, but people are going to keep it on. All right, so tell us, what are your feelings about that?
I'll be honest with you. My feeling about that is it's really unrealistic, because the reality is a lot of the Buckhead people are moving into the city because we're allowing gentrification, and we got to hold that thought on. We can depart from these schools and the city can depart from us, but how much of that population is going to still be entered once we have all of these charter schools in here? How many of them are going to be able to buy a home in our area and have their students still go into the schools that we put now in the city? So my position is that I don't necessarily agree with Buckhead leaving, because it does directly have a significant source of income for our city. So I don't agree with it leaving from a financial aspect, but I also look at it from an aspect of when it comes down to corporations and partnerships. What would that conversation look like once they departed and we had agreements with these corporations that are there?
Thank you so very much, and we want to thank you for your time. We'll be back in touch when we get started, Frank. Oh, I would like for you, the Atlanta Central Labor Council may be interviewing a school board candidate, and we would like for you to call over there today and ask for Sandra Williams. And the phone number is right here.
She can't see
it is 404-525-3559. 404-525-3559. And Andrew Williams, and also ask for Rita Scott, just in case. And then let me throw this out to you. We are a labor union, and we are part of AFL-CIO, but we don't always agree. AFL-CIO is divided up into labor councils geographically. The Atlanta North Georgia Labor Council is the largest, that's the one you call it. We are a public sector union. There are private sector unions that also will weigh in, and their interest will be their contracts, plumbing, electrical, that kind of thing, building contracts mainly. There's another union that we fiercely disagree with, and we love the membership, but the leadership that they've had over the past several years has not represented what unionism is all about. That's AFSCME. AFSCME has a tendency to support certain people on that board. duked that out and fought it out. And that's why we want this publicized so that the House of Labor can clean itself. Okay. All right. Thank you so very much. All right. Thank you, darling. We appreciate you. Hang in there. Good luck. And we want to stay in
Thank
touch
you.
too. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.